The Winter Tree by Georgina Lewis. Read by Jill Greenacre. Chapter 14. The Berry. Early on Christmas Eve, our vicar called. He turned up on the doorstep, his gloves in his hands, with pink cheeks glowing from the cold. David had gone to answer the door. We heard low voices, and I recognised the ecclesiastical tone. I glanced at Hester. "It's the vicar from home," I whispered. "No doubt playing you a neighbourly call. Do you want to see him? Shall I say you're too tired?" She gave a quick smile and said, "No, it would be nice to see a harbinger of joy." There was the sound of a light step on the floor in the next room and the click of the front door closing. Hester and I went through from the scullery. The vicar was very seasonal, beaming and nodding and glowing in the little room, with the thin light of morning coming through the window from the street outside and shining on his satiny head when he took his hat off. David stood beside Hester with his arm about her shoulders and smiled his most handsome, most boyish smile. He shook hands warmly and said all the right things, and Hester stood beside him and smiled politely back. "Well, well," said the vicar, beaming rosily at her. "How are you, my dear? My, you're looking well. Quite radiant. Isn't she radiant, David? And Abigail, too. How nice to see you, Abigail. And nice to see you, too, David. We miss you in the belfry, my boy. Oh, I mean that quite genuinely. The ringing has most noticeably deteriorated in your absence." "Do sit down, Vicar. No, I'm sure it hasn't at all. They're doing very well without me, so I hear, although it's very kind of you to encourage me to think so. Do please sit down. Shall I take your hat?" "Thank you, my boy, thank you." He lowered himself gently into a chair. "And when is the little one due to make his appearance, Mrs. Penkevin?" "Dear me, that does sound strange, doesn't it? May I still call you Hester? Good, good. Next week, my, how the time does fly, doesn't it? It seems only yesterday that I was marrying the two of you young people." "It's very good of you to call, sir," David was saying with a social ease I rather envied. "Such a long way out of your way, too." Not at all, my boy. As a matter of fact, I had to come over to Truro on parochial business, a little matter of the diocese. Besides, I've been meaning to call upon you both for some time." He gazed around him at the little room, tapping lightly on his knees with the fingers of each hand. My, this is pleasant. Quite a snug little home you have here. How lucky you are to have a view, Hester." He nodded towards a small window, where a distant slice of the great central spire of the cathedral rose narrowly between the gatepost and the next-door wall. "Such a beautiful building, our cathedral. Beautiful, I always think." David cleared his throat. "May I make you a cup of tea, sir?" How kind of you, my boy, how kind. Something to keep out the cold December wind. Yes, I should appreciate a cup of tea. Yes, tea would be very pleasant. Thank you." He studied the floor with elaborate care for a few seconds, and then looked at Hester. "And how are you keeping, my dear? You look very well indeed, doesn't she, Abigail?" I said that indeed she did. The vicar chattered blithely on, dropping little platitudes and bits of gentle humour into the air. After a while I noticed that Hester had begun to grow rather pale. I set her down on the sofa, and David brought her a cup of tea, which she drank eagerly. The vicar peered at her closely once or twice, so I hurriedly began to bombard him with questions about home and almost everyone in the village. He sat back, beamed and nodded and grew jocular and answered my questions genially, and once he said, "By the way, Abigail, I hear your brother is planning to marry fairly soon. The young lady from town, isn't it? Splendid, splendid. Another family celebration for you all." So I knew that Perrin had told him about Jennifer. "I believe the two young people wish to be married in our own church," the vicar went on, "which is very pleasant for us and your parents too, Abigail. A cup of tea. Thank you, my boy. Just the thing to keep the winds at bay on such a cold morning. The young lady has only a father alive, so I believe, and there are no other children. Just the one daughter. Alice, is it? No, dear me, no, Jennifer. Yes, of course, how foolish of me to forget. Her father is a ringer too, I believe, which makes it all the more pleasant. Possibly how young Perrin met the family in the first place, no doubt, Abigail. Yes, I thought so." David came back with more tea and the sugar bowl, and the vicar cast anxious glances at Hester. Are you all right, my dear? You seem very quiet. Does she not, Abigail? He frowned at her in gentle concern. Yes, I said, I think she feels quiet. Oh, he said in some surprise. There was a little pause. How is your wife? I asked brightly. He blinked. My wife? Oh, very, very well, thank you. Very well indeed. Busy, of course, with all the festivities in hand. Christmas always comes upon us before we quite realise it, does it not, somehow? Yes, thank you, my boy, too, if I may. Oh, thank you. He stirred with care. Yes, my wife is very busy, as I'm sure your mother is too, Abigail. But there, dear me, I was forgetting. Of course she has to rest so much at the moment, has she not, on doctor's orders? Yes, and young Lissy being such a tower of strength while you are away, Abigail. Yes, I believe they are all very well. And the little fellow Thomas is such a credit to us in the choir. He glanced benignly round the low room, sipping his tea. We shuffled our feet a bit, willing him to go, but reluctant to make it too obvious. You haven't your Christmas decorations up yet, I see, Hester. Oh, you have? Oh, yes, very nice. I can see the little tree now over there in the corner. Very jolly. At last he got up. Well, it has certainly been very pleasant seeing you all, he said as we got to our feet. I'll give them your regards at home, shall I? Or rather your love, I should say. He shook hands with us all. I wish every one of you a very good Christmas and hope the happy event goes well for you, my dear. Let us hope you will at least be able to enjoy celebrating Christmas first, shall we? I'll call upon you if I may next time I'm in Truro, Hester. Have an enjoyable Christmas, my dear. I made Hester sit down, rather afraid she might fall down if I didn't. Her face was strained in the cold light, and there were deep shadows under her eyes. The vicar shook hands all round once again. I know they would send their regards to you from home. They seem to be keeping well so far, luckily, certainly insofar as I know. And then he said, You've heard our sad news, of course, about poor Joseph. There was an extraordinary silence. Into it the little clock on the mantelpiece dropped idle sounds of tick and tock and rattled softly to itself as it turned the hour. The vicar looked from one to the other of us in gentle puzzlement, and nobody quite knew what to say. Hester had gone very white. All colour had drained from her cheeks, and she swayed a little on the sofa. Her eyes stared up at him, fixed unmovingly on his lips. David said, as if with tremendous effort, And what exactly has happened to Joseph, Vicar? His voice sounded hoarse in the silence. The vicar looked vaguely embarrassed. Dear me, you haven't heard about it, obviously. Such a shame. It seems so unfair. Poor Joseph worked so hard in his garden. I thought vaguely of hitting him, but controlled myself. David said, I think you'd better tell us, in a tight, level voice with a tone in it I'd never heard before. Why, poor Joseph had a nasty little accident last week. A young cow from the field behind his cottage, a heifer I believe it was, got into his garden and trampled down his henhouse. Quite smashed it, I'm afraid. Quite irreparably. One of his hens was killed in the melee, as it were. A nasty thing to happen, and in December too. Dear me, you all look rather shocked. I hope I didn't alarm you all unduly. There was a little sighing sound. We all turned to look behind us. Hester, quite silently, had fallen sideways and slipped off the sofa onto the floor. We carried her up the stairs together, David and I, and laid her down in the bed. David, with one look at her face, said grimly to me, Get rid of the old chap and then stay with her. I'm going for the doctor. And then he was gone, in a blast of cold air out into the street. I saw the vicar out. So sorry, he was muttering. Dear me, perhaps I chose rather an ill moment to deliver my little piece of bad news, but I felt sure you'd all like to hear all the little details from home. You're all rather fond of Joseph, so I believe. It seemed... Yes, I said, of course we are. Don't worry, I think it's a baby. I got his hat for him and hustled him out. Of course you should have told us. I'm glad you did. I got him as far as the door when he lowered his voice carefully. Is she well, Abigail? She's dreadfully thin, isn't she, my dear? And rather a strained look, I thought, about the eyes. Dear me, I hope the child is all right. And Hester too. Yes, I said, I hope so too. So sorry if my little visit should have upset her, he went on anxiously, turning his hat round and round in his hands. I clenched my teeth and prayed he would hurry up and go. He lingered on the doorstep, and behind him, in the cold December street, a woman went past with a child and peered curiously in at us. A page of newspaper blown by the wind fluttered out of the gutter and wrapped around his legs. I presume David has gone for the nurse, has he not? For the doctor. Yes, of course, very sensible. You don't feel that perhaps, he said, bending down to shake off the newspaper so that it continued on its way down the street, that perhaps I should not have mentioned the subject of accidents at such a time? My goodness, the sky looks remarkably laden. I think we are about to have a slight fall of snow. Dear me, perhaps not quite the right moment to bring up the subject of accidents. And off he went into the bleak morning, holding his hat on with a gloved hand and muttering gently to himself, "Oh dear, perhaps I should have refrained from mentioning." I sped upstairs to Hester. My heart lurched at the change in her face. She lay looking up at me from the pillows, her face greener than ever. But she was smiling, a glowing, excited smile. All of a sudden, her body began to heave, and she grabbed at my hand and dug her nails in hard. "What is it?" I shook her arm. "Is it the baby, Hester?" After what seemed to me to be a long while, she lay back and took a deep breath. "Yes, it's the pain starting, I think. Don't worry, it'll be ages and ages yet, hours I expect." She seemed extraordinarily calm. "Auntie says it takes days and days with your first baby. Oh, Abby, I hope it isn't that long, but it is exciting, isn't it?" "Verily," I said dryly, "especially if they don't get here in time." She laughed, a joyous, light-hearted sound. "Oh, of course they will. Get Auntie's letter over on the chest of drawers. See what she says. Read it to me." I turned away to get the letter. I found it easily. Mother's squarish handwriting, familiar as her face. I opened it and took it out, my hands trembling a little. "Dear Hester," I began, and then she was clutching at me again. I held her hand and squeezed it while the spasm passed. "Go on." She took a deep breath. "Read me what it says. The pain's going now. On the second page about the breathing bit." I searched hurriedly among instructions for exercise and recipes for raspberry leaf tea and the relief of heartburn and varicose veins, and found a bit which started, "When the pains begin." "I think I've got it," I said in triumph. "Listen. When the pains begin, my dear, do not go to bed at once, but try to walk about as long as possible." "Oh, Hester, perhaps you should get up." My voice wavered doubtfully. She laughed joyously and loudly. "Oh, Abby, I think I'm over that bit. Read on further, where it starts about the bowls and papers." "Bowls?" I asked her. "Are you sure?" I rummaged through several sheets of lined paper and found, "Get ready the bowls and newspapers." "Hester," I said, "what bowls? Where are they? Where's all this newspaper she's talking about?" "Oh, the nurse said she'd bring some special stuff," said Hester through clenched teeth. "I've only got those bath towels over there. We'd better not touch those yet, not before she comes. Oh, Abby, here's another pain. Hold my hand." I held her hand and clenched my teeth for her, while her small body heaved about. She breathed heavily and swallowed a lot, and once she looked at me a little strangely and said, "Why, Abby, how nice of you to come," as if I'd just arrived. I looked at her flushed cheeks and a slight panic began to rise in me. But almost immediately her face cleared and she looked at me in great delight and said again, "Don't worry, it'll be ages yet," in a voice of amazing calm. A little later, when I thought she was dozing lightly, I went to the window to look for signs for David and the doctor or the nurse coming up the road. I stood for several seconds looking out on the deserted street. Snow was beginning to fall, and over on the distant skyline the low hills were obscured by bank upon bank of thick, yellow-tinged cloud. I heard a little noise behind me from the bed. Turning, I saw she was looking at me, staring up strangely from the pillow. "What is it, Hester?" I asked her quickly. "Another pain?" At first I thought she hadn't heard me. Her eyes were oddly veiled, fixed on a point on the wall behind my head, and her lips were moving silently. And then in a strange, distant voice, she began to argue, as if with herself, very politely. No, she said. "I'm sorry. It's very important." I shook her arm gently. "Hester, what is it? Have you got another pain? Hester, answer me." But she only said again, "I'm sorry, but I must see him, just once more, before I leave," in that strange little voice, like a dreamer talking to herself. "Just once more. It's important. It's on the map. Just once, before I die." "Die, Hester?" I said more briskly than I felt. "You're not going to die. You're only having a baby. Don't be so silly." She gave me an odd look, as if I were a trespasser, and said irritably, "Of course I am." And then softly, as if to herself again, "But not yet, not for a little while. The baby first. There's the baby first before I can leave." Then with a swift change of mood that was like the sun coming out, she laughed and said, "Oh, Abby, it's so exciting," and began to grit her teeth, so I knew another pain was coming. Suddenly things began to happen with alarming speed. One moment she seemed to be lying there, saying calmly, "Don't worry, it'll be ages yet." And the next minute she was heaving and thrashing about and biting her lips. "Don't panic," she said in between gasps. "I'm perfectly all right." "What do you know about it?" I shouted desperately at her. "You've never had a baby before. Shouldn't I be getting things together, like scissors and hot water and soap and stuff?" She threw me a look of glorious triumph, gritted her teeth and dug her nails into my hands so hard that my fingers were bleeding. Then quite suddenly she stopped thrashing about and went very quiet and still. "Oh, Abby," she said, her eyes widening, "I think you'd better have a look." My hands began to tremble violently. I threw back the bedclothes and stared down, unable to believe my eyes. There, lying on the sheet between her knees, was a small blue doll, and a long twisted whitish rope thing leading from its stomach into Hester. I gave a shriek and picked it up by its tiny blue feet, and as I did so, it gave a kind of splutter and began to wail irritably. "Oh, Hester! Hester, it's the baby! Hester, it's real!" She gave a half sob and peered up at it in my hands in amazement. As we watched, the little creature rapidly changed colour all over and became a pinkish red. I grabbed a nearby shirt of David's that looked fairly clean, changed my mind, threw it aside, then grabbed the nurse's precious bath towels and wrapped round the baby. Aren't I supposed to cut the rope?" I asked her breathlessly. She shrugged, her eyes dancing. "I don't know anything about it." "Only producing one," I gasped, and we stared at each other in disbelief, and then at the baby. Hester propped herself up on one elbow and stared at it. "Is it breathing?" she asked doubtfully. "It looks awfully quiet. I think they're supposed to cry, aren't they?" I peered at it closely, my legs trembling. I was suddenly finding it exceedingly difficult to remain standing. The baby gave a yawn of utter boredom and licked its minute lips with a miniature pink tongue. "Yes, it's fine," I shouted. "Hester, it's lovely. It's gone off to sleep, I think, but it's perfectly all right. Here, hold it, look. It's lovely, it's a lovely, lovely baby. Oh, Hester, I can't believe it. It's a marvellous baby." She took the towel-wrapped bundle in her hands. Downstairs, the front door banged and 2 sets of heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs and halted, astounded, in the doorway. And thus, on Christmas Eve, in falling snow and holly bright with berries, Elizabeth Penn Kevin came into the world.